She keeps sliding into my sheets, whispering that she needs my warmth. Lieutenant Myra Vance walked briskly down the corridor, her boots squeaking against the metal floor. The hum of the colony's power systems filled the air, a constant reminder of how fragile life was on this distant planet. Outside, the frozen landscape stretched endlessly, a world of white and blue, silent and unforgiving. Mara paused by the viewport and pressed her hand against the cold glass. Snow swirled outside, drifting like tiny diamonds in the faint light of Cryovos' distant sun. She had stood here many times before, watching the planet breathe under its frozen crust, but today there was a sense of tension in the air. Something felt different. Her shift had been ordinary until now. She had checked the environmental sensors, ensured the heating systems were functioning, and monitored the growth of the biodomes that sustained the colony's plants. Life on Cryovos was a constant challenge. Every human in the colony depended on careful planning, technology, and a little luck. But Myra had learned to rely not only on machines, but also on her instincts. She turned away from the viewport and headed toward her quarters. A warm cup of synthesized coffee waited for her there, and she hoped it would calm the unease building in her chest. As she walked, she passed other colonists busy at work, their faces focused and serious. Life on Cryovos demanded attention. There was no room for carelessness. When Myra reached her door, she noticed something unusual. A faint glow emanated from inside her quarters. Her brow furrowed. The light was soft, almost like sunlight refracted through crystal, but there was no source of natural light in the room. Cautiously, she reached for the door handle. The moment she opened the door, she froze. There, sliding across the floor toward her, was a small creature. It was delicate, like a shard of glass come to life, and it shimmered with pale blue light. Its form seemed fluid, constantly shifting, but at the center she could see something resembling eyes, curious, intelligent, and scared. Mara's heart skipped a beat. She had trained for unexpected events on Cryovos, but nothing in her experience prepared her for this. The creature stopped a few feet away, tilting its head. In a voice that seemed to echo inside her mind rather than in the air, it spoke. "Warmth, I need warmth." Mara blinked. Telepathy? That was impossible, and yet the words were clear. They carried urgency, fear, and a strange kind of trust. She took a cautious step forward. I can help. You're safe here," she said aloud, though she had no idea if the creature could hear spoken words. The being shivered slightly, and the glow around it dimmed. Mara realized it was cold, deeply cold, perhaps even more so than the frigid air outside. Her mind raced. The colony's heating systems could not reach these temperatures naturally, but she had an idea. Slowly, carefully, she sat on the edge of her bed and extended her hands toward the creature. "Come closer," she said softly. "I won't hurt you." The being hesitated, then slid toward her. Its body radiated a faint chill, but Mara felt a tiny spark of warmth where its form met hers. She wrapped her hands gently around it. The warmth she provided seemed to stabilize its energy, and it emitted a soft, musical hum that made her chest tighten with awe. "What are you?" she whispered. The being pulsed in response, almost as if it understood her question. A series of images flooded her mind, planets, frozen landscapes, and a starless sky. Then a single clear thought: I am alone. My son is gone. I travel. Myra's throat tightened. This creature, this life form, had survived the death of its home. And now, by some miracle or misfortune, it had found her. She knew she had to act carefully. The colony's leaders would be cautious, even fearful, if they learned of this being. They might want to isolate it, study it in ways that could harm it, but Mara felt a surge of responsibility. She could not leave it out there in the cold, not when it had trusted her. "Don't worry, I'll protect you," she said, and she meant it. Over the next few hours, Mara observed the creature. She discovered that when it touched her hands or sat close to her body, its energy stabilized. When it moved away, it began to flicker and tremble. It was fragile, dependent on warmth, and yet intelligent. Myra realized that it was not just surviving. It was trying to communicate, to understand her, to trust her. She made a small bed for it near her quarters heater, though the warmth from the machine alone was not enough. She wrapped a soft blanket around it, careful not to restrict its fluid movements. The creature hummed again, a sound that seemed almost musical. Myra felt a strange comfort in its presence, a reminder that even in this cold, distant world, life could exist in forms she had never imagined. That night, as Mara lay in her own bed, she thought about the creature. She had faced many dangers on Cryovos, storms, equipment failures, and isolation, but nothing had prepared her for this. Here was a being from another world, seeking warmth not just to survive, but to connect, to exist. And she was the one it trusted. Sleep came slowly, her mind racing with possibilities. Could this being survive long-term on Cryovos? Could humans and it coexist? Could it even help humanity, as strange as it seemed in some way? Mara did not know, but she felt certain of one thing: she could not abandon it. Morning arrived with a gray light spilling through the dome. Mara checked on the creature. It moved slightly, sliding closer to her hands, humming softly. She smiled. "Good morning," she said, her voice full of cautious optimism. Over the next few days, Mara experimented carefully. She learned that the creature could respond to her touch and to heat in ways she could not fully explain. Sometimes, when it sat close to her, she felt stronger, more alert, and capable of thinking faster. At first, she dismissed it as imagination, but the pattern persisted. The colony's experiments on human endurance and alertness could not explain it. Curiosity and hope mingled in her mind. Perhaps this being was not only surviving, it could be a partner in humanity's survival on Cryovos. Perhaps it could teach humans something new. Yet danger loomed. Mara knew the colony could not ignore the presence of this alien. The other colonists were cautious, wary of the unknown. And Cryovos was merciless. One misstep could freeze life to nothingness. She had to act wisely, balancing her own instincts with caution, trust with prudence. One evening, as the planet's twin moons rose in the cold sky, Mara sat with the creature beside the heater. It pulsed softly, leaning against her arm as if drawing strength from her warmth. She whispered, "We'll figure this out together. You and I will survive here." The being hummed in reply, and Mara felt a strange sense of partnership, a connection deeper than language, deeper than understanding. In that moment, she realized that life on Cryovos would never be the same. And perhaps, just perhaps, humanity had found an ally it did not even know it needed. The storm outside raged on, relentless and unforgiving. But inside Mara's quarters there was warmth and there was hope. Two beings from different worlds had met in the cold, and together they were beginning something extraordinary. Little did Mara know this was only the beginning. Cryovos had many challenges ahead, and survival would demand courage, ingenuity, and the very best of what it meant to be human. And in the presence of this small, shimmering creature, Mara felt the first stirrings of something remarkable. The chance to prove that even in the darkest, coldest corners of the universe, humanity could shine. The icy winds of Cryovos raged on outside the colony's dome, but inside the biodomes glowed with life. Plants stretched toward artificial sunlight, their leaves trembling under the controlled climate. Mara Vance moved through the corridors with a sense of purpose she had not felt in days. The creature, her unexpected companion, had changed everything. She entered her quarters cautiously, expecting to find the small being waiting as usual. It was there, hovering near the heater, shimmering with soft blue light. Its form pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. When it saw her, it slid closer, reaching out a translucent arm. Mara smiled and held her hands out. The moment their touch connected, she felt a strange warmth flow through her, not just physical heat, but something deeper. Energy, vitality. She blinked, startled. "Morning," she whispered, her voice soft. "How are you today?" The being hummed in response, a sound that vibrated gently in her mind. Then, almost as if it understood, it projected an image into her thoughts. A storm outside, ice forming on the colony's outer walls, fragile plants in the biodomes struggling to survive. It was showing her what it had sensed, its own perception of the environment. Mara's breath caught. The creature was not only intelligent, it could sense the colony's systems and the planet's conditions in ways she could not. She realized that this small alien could be more than a curiosity. It could be a key to survival on Cryovos. Over the next few days, Mara conducted careful experiments. She monitored the creature's reactions to warmth, touch, and the colony's energy systems. Each time it drew near her or the heat sources, she felt more alert, more capable of thinking quickly. She began charting the patterns, noting the times when her physical and mental performance improved. At first, she kept her notes private. The colony's scientists were cautious about anything that could interfere with their structured research. But Mara could not ignore the truth. The alien seemed to amplify human resilience. It was subtle at first, a faster reaction here, a clearer memory there, but the effect was undeniable. One evening, Mara sat at her workstation, reviewing her logs, when an alert flashed across the central monitoring screen. She frowned. The temperature in the eastern biodome was dropping unusually fast. The emergency heaters were struggling to maintain a safe climate. If the temperature fell further, the crops would be damaged, and with the colony's supplies limited, that could mean disaster. Mara grabbed her communicator. "Command, this is Lieutenant Vance. We have a sudden drop in Dome 7. Heating systems are failing. I'm on my way." A calm voice replied, "Acknowledged, Lieutenant. Take care. Keep us updated." Mara ran through the corridors, the cold air from outside brushing against the edges of the sealed doors. She reached Dome 7 and stopped short. The temperature had fallen drastically. Frost coated the edges of the glass walls, and the plants were wilting under the sudden chill. The colony's automated systems were trying to compensate, but the failure was spreading too fast. She turned to the creature, which had followed her silently. Its glow had intensified, and it hovered near her side. Mara realized instinctively that it could help. She extended her hands toward it, and as it moved closer, she felt the familiar warmth coursing through her. She focused on that energy, imagining it flowing into the dome's systems, her body acting as a bridge. The creature pulsed, brighter and steadier than ever before. Slowly, the temperature in the biodome began to rise, just enough to stabilize the plants. The frost melted, leaving water droplets glinting in the artificial light. Mara's heart raced. The alien was amplifying not just her warmth, but her ability to influence the environment. "This is incredible," she whispered. "You're helping more than just yourself. You can help all of us." The being responded with a series of shimmering patterns, almost like a smile, as if it understood her excitement. Mara realized something important. This small, fragile creature was not a threat. It was an ally. And with the right guidance, it could be a powerful one. The next day, Mara requested a private meeting with the colony's head scientist, Dr. Callan. She explained the situation carefully, emphasizing the creature's abilities without making it sound like a threat. "Doctor." Callan listened, her brow furrowed. "You're saying that this being can enhance human performance?" "Yes," Mara said firmly. "And it can sense environmental changes. It helped stabilize Dome 7 last night before the heaters could fully respond." "I believe it can be a vital part of our survival here," the scientist sighed. "It's fascinating but also dangerous. We don't know its limits or its intentions. We need to proceed carefully. Isolation may be necessary." Mara shook her head. "Isolation could kill it. And we would lose an opportunity to learn. We've survived this long on Cryovos because humans can adapt. This being could help us adapt faster. We should trust it." Dr. Callan studied Mara's determined face. Finally, she nodded slowly. "All right, we will proceed cautiously. But we need logs, tests, everything documented. If anything goes wrong, we cannot risk the colony." Over the following week, Mara and the creature developed a routine. The aliens seemed to understand the concept of tasks. It followed her to the biodomes, hovering near her hands, amplifying her efforts. Together, they monitored systems, repaired equipment, and even predicted small failures before they happened. Colonists who had been skeptical began to notice. At first, they were wary of the glowing, shifting figure. But when plants that would have died thrived under its influence, and when small equipment malfunctions were corrected faster than technology alone could manage, hesitation turned to admiration. One evening, as Mara prepared her logs for the day, the creature moved closer than usual. Its glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Mara reached out, and it nestled against her arm. She realized that this small being was not only intelligent, it could form bonds, understand emotions, and respond to care. "You trust me," she said softly, more to herself than to it. It pulsed brighter, a soft hum vibrating in her mind. Mara felt a wave of warmth, and not just from the physical sense. There was understanding, companionship, and a shared purpose. She realized then that the creature had chosen her, not just for warmth, but for partnership, but Cryovos was unforgiving. That night, the colony experienced its first true emergency. A massive blizzard struck, one of the fiercest in years. Warning alarms blared throughout the domes as automated systems struggled to compensate. Power fluctuations began to ripple through the colony, threatening life support. Mara sprang into action, knowing that human ingenuity and the aliens' abilities were the colony's only hope. She ran to Dome 7, the heart of the colony's food supply. The temperature was dropping rapidly, frost creeping along the walls. The alien hovered close to her side, pulsing brightly. Myra placed her hands near its energy field, letting the warmth flow into her body and through her into the dome systems. Slowly, the temperature stabilized, but the crisis was far from over. Other domes reported failures, and Myra realized she could not be everywhere at once. The alien's energy was finite. It could not cover the entire colony alone. She needed to strategize, to use human planning alongside the being's abilities. With quick thinking, Myra divided the tasks. She directed colonists to focus on critical systems while she moved with the alien from dome to dome. Together, they corrected failures, restored heating, and repaired structural weaknesses caused by the wind. By the time the blizzard subsided, the colony had survived, intact but shaken. Exhausted, Myra returned to her quarters. The alien hovered near her, pulsing softly as if sensing her fatigue. She smiled and whispered, "We did it, together." The being hummed, and for a moment, Myra allowed herself to imagine what the future could hold. With the alien by her side, humanity had an unexpected advantage on this frozen world. It was not just technology or strength that had saved the colony. It was trust, cooperation, and the warmth that connected two very different forms of life. That night, Myra lay awake, thinking of the day's events. She knew the creature's abilities had limits, and the colony's survival depended on both caution and courage. But for the first time since arriving on Cryovos, she felt hope. A new chapter had begun, one where humans were not alone in facing the planet's challenges. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the frozen landscape glistening under the dim light of Cryovos' sun. Inside, a small being pulsed with soft blue light, resting near Myra. Together, they had faced the first true test, and Myra knew this was only the beginning. The creature had chosen humanity as a partner, and humanity, for its part, had embraced the unknown. In the cold, distant reaches of Cryovos, a new bond had formed, one that would shape the future of the colony, and perhaps the fate of humans on this alien world. The day on Cryovos began like any other, with the hum of machinery and the faint warmth of the biodomes holding the colony together. Lieutenant Myra Vance walked through the corridors, her mind focused on the routine inspections that had become her daily life. But something felt different. There was a tension in the air, a subtle vibration beneath her boots that made her pause. She pressed her hand against the metal railing, feeling the slight tremor. It was not an earthquake. Cryovos had little tectonic activity, but a deep, rumbling pulse from the planet itself. Myra frowned. She knew the colony's sensors would have detected any major shift, and yet there it was, an unease she could feel in her bones. Her communicator beeped. "Lieutenant Vance," the voice of Dr. Callan came through, calm but serious. "We have a reading you need to see immediately. There's an energy surge outside the eastern perimeter near the ice cliffs. It's affecting the thermal shields." Mara's heart tightened. The eastern cliffs were dangerous, even under normal conditions. If the thermal shields failed there, the resulting cold could ripple through the colony, endangering life support and the biodomes. She grabbed her coat and gloves, signaling for the creature to follow. The small alien hovered near her shoulder as she stepped into the corridor. Its glow pulsed brighter than usual, almost as if it sensed the danger. Myra placed her hand near its energy field, feeling the warmth flow through her, steadying her nerves. Together, they moved toward the monitoring hub, where the colony's sensors displayed the anomaly. On the screen, Myra could see a massive energy fluctuation spreading across the ice cliffs. The readings were unlike anything the colony had ever encountered. The temperature was dropping at an alarming rate, and the energy surges threatened to overload the power systems. "Doctor." Callan approached, her brow furrowed. "If we don't stabilize the shields, the cold could spread to Dome 7 and the adjacent biodomes. We may lose critical supplies." Myra nodded. "We need to act fast. I'll go outside and assess the situation." "We'll need the aliens' help to manage the temperature drop." Dr. Callan hesitated. "Lieutenant, the outside conditions are extreme. Even with your experience, it's risky." Myra met her gaze. "I understand, but we don't have a choice. This is what we trained for. And we're not alone." She glanced at the creature, which pulsed in response. Its energy seemed to recognize the urgency. Within minutes, Myra was outside the main dome, walking carefully over the icy terrain. The wind cut through her coat, sharp and relentless, but she pressed on. The cliffs loomed ahead, jagged and towering, ice glinting in the pale light of Cryovos' sun. She could see the thermal shields flickering, weak spots spreading like cracks in glass. The alien hovered beside her, its light casting a protective glow. Myra reached out and touched its energy field. Immediately, she felt strength surge through her arms and legs, a clarity in her mind that allowed her to focus entirely on the task ahead. Together, they approached the first weak point. "Okay," Mara muttered, studying the shield's interface. "If we can reinforce the energy matrix here, we can stabilize the flow." She placed her hands on the console, feeling the alien's energy merge with hers. The warmth spread, extending outward, and the shield responded. Slowly, the flickering decreased, but the challenge was far from over. The surge was spreading faster than they could handle. Myra realized that manual adjustments alone would not be enough. She needed the alien to do more, something it had not done before. "Can you amplify the energy further?" she asked softly, unsure if the being could understand her request in full. The creature pulsed brighter and more steadily. It hovered above the console, its form expanding slightly. Mara felt a wave of warmth and clarity, a surge of energy that spread through her body and into the shield systems. The flickering slowed, and the temperature began to stabilize. For a moment, everything seemed under control. Myra allowed herself a brief sigh of relief, but then a new warning flashed on the screen. An ice slide was forming at the cliff's edge, threatening to collapse onto the colony's perimeter. Myra's pulse quickened. The ice slide could destroy the outer shield generators and compromise the domes. She turned to the alien. "We have to stop it. Can you help me with this?" The creature pulsed rapidly, almost like a heartbeat accelerating. Myra realized it understood. Its energy field expanded outward, interacting with the icy terrain. Slowly, she saw a faint shimmer along the edge of the slide, a kind of energy barrier forming. The alien's presence was not just amplifying human warmth, it was affecting the environment itself. Mara guided its energy, concentrating on reinforcing the barrier. The ice trembled, then slowed. Slowly, the slide halted, held back by the alien's power. Mara's breath came in ragged gasps, but she could not stop smiling. Together, they had prevented disaster. By the time the rest of the colony arrived with heavy equipment, the immediate threat had been neutralized. Mara stepped back, letting the alien hover freely. Its glow was steady now, calm and serene, as if it had exerted itself to its limit and was satisfied. "Doctor." Callan approached, eyes wide. I've never seen anything like this. The being, it's not just intelligent, it's adaptive. It can respond to the environment in ways we never imagined." Mara nodded. "It's learning and it's teaching me at the same time. We need to study it carefully, but we also need to trust it." The rest of the day was spent repairing the minor damages caused by the storm and the ice slide. Mara and the alien worked together seamlessly, moving between domes, reinforcing thermal shields, and assisting colonists. Every action was precise, almost instinctive. The colony began to realize that the alien was not just a helper. It was an extension of their efforts, amplifying human capability in a way no technology could. That evening, Mara returned to her quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. The alien hovered near her, pulsing softly. She reached out and let it nestle against her hands. "You did amazing today," she whispered. "I don't know what we would have done without you." The being responded with a soft hum, and Mara felt warmth radiate not just physically, but emotionally. She realized that their bond had grown stronger. It was not just survival, they were partners working together to face challenges that neither could handle alone. But Mara also knew the risks. The alien's abilities were powerful but finite. Overuse could weaken it. And the colony's reliance on this small being could become dangerous if they did not respect its limits. She made a mental note to communicate this to Dr. Callan and the other leaders. That night, as Mara lay in her quarters, she reflected on the day's events. The alien had revealed a new layer of its abilities, showing that it could interact with the environment in profound ways. It could sense danger, amplify human capability, and even influence natural forces. The implications were enormous. Outside, Cryovos remained a frozen and unforgiving world, but inside the colony, a new sense of hope had emerged. Humanity had faced countless challenges, but with ingenuity, courage, and the unexpected partnership with this alien, they could survive even the harshest conditions. Mara watched the creature pulse gently, a steady blue glow filling the room. She realized that Cryovos was testing them, pushing them to their limits, but that was exactly what humans were built to endure. Adaptation, ingenuity, and cooperation were in their nature. And now, with this being at her side, they had an advantage that no other colony could claim. The night passed quietly, and Mara slept with a sense of cautious optimism. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and perhaps new discoveries. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of peace. The alien rested nearby, and together they had weathered the storm. For the first time, Mara truly understood the potential of this partnership. Cryovos was a harsh teacher, but with courage, intelligence, and warmth. Both human and alien, they could face whatever lay ahead. And Mara knew that the bond they were forming would be the key to survival, not just for themselves, but for the entire colony. The first crisis had passed, but the lessons it brought would shape every decision to come. And somewhere deep in the frozen cliffs of Cryovos, a small, shimmering being pulsed with the certainty that, together, they could endure anything. The icy landscape of Cryovos stretched endlessly, quiet except for the faint hum of the colony's machinery. Lieutenant Mara Vance stood at the edge of the main observation deck, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The alien hovered near her shoulder, its soft blue glow a constant comfort. But Mara's heart was uneasy. The storm from the previous week had passed, but it had left signs of strain throughout the colony. Some outer structures were weakened, thermal shields had small but dangerous cracks, and even the most resilient plants in the biodomes had struggled. It had been a reminder, Cryovos was relentless and humans, no matter how clever, could never fully control it. Mara's communicator beeped. It was Dr. Callan. "Lieutenant," the voice sounded tense, "we have readings from the northern cliffs. There's an abnormal energy fluctuation, stronger than anything we've measured before. It could affect life support and power distribution if we don't act quickly." Mara's stomach tightened. She had hoped the worst was behind them, but Cryovos was proving otherwise. "Understood." "I'm on my way," she said. She glanced at the alien. Its glow brightened almost as if it sensed the urgency. Outside, the wind bit at her face, sharp and cold. The northern cliffs rose like frozen towers, shadows stretching long across the snow. Mara checked the colony's instruments as she approached. The readings were alarming. A massive thermal imbalance was spreading across the ice, threatening the colony's outer shields. If it reached the domes, temperatures could plummet dangerously. "Looks worse than last time," Mara muttered. She looked at the alien. "We need to stop it before it spreads." The being pulsed in response, expanding slightly in size. Mara felt the warmth surge through her, stronger than ever. This time, she knew the challenge would demand everything: the alien's abilities, her own skills, and the collective effort of the colony. She activated her communicator. "All units, report to critical areas. I will guide them with support from our friend here." The colonists followed her instructions quickly. Cryovos had taught them to trust experience, to act decisively. But even with careful planning, the situation required more than human skill. Mara and the alien moved along the perimeter, stabilizing thermal shields. She could feel the alien's energy extending into the machines, amplifying the output just enough to hold the temperature steady. But the threat was not just environmental. As they reached the northern cliffs, Mara saw movement in the distance, a sheet of ice beginning to crack and shift. The alien hovered closer, pulsing, sensing the instability. "Looks like an ice quake," Mara said under her breath. "If it collapses, it could destroy our power relays." She ran toward the weak point, her hands on the alien's energy field. The warmth surged into her, steadying her movements and sharpening her focus. For hours, Mara and the alien worked together, guiding colonists, reinforcing shields, and stabilizing vulnerable areas. The alien's abilities were evolving. It could now sense weak points in the ice, in the shields, and even in the colony's machinery. It acted almost like a living map, helping Mara anticipate problems before they occurred. Despite their efforts, the northern cliffs shifted violently. A massive chunk of ice broke free, heading straight for the colony's perimeter. Mara shouted commands as the alien pulsed, expanding its energy field toward the sliding ice. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the chunk slowed, almost hovering in place. The alien's energy formed an invisible barrier, holding the ice safely away from the colony. Mara's breath caught. This was beyond anything she had imagined. The alien was no longer just amplifying human warmth. It was shaping the environment, bending physical forces to protect life. Dr. Callan's voice came over the communicator, awed. "Lieutenant, I can't believe it. The readings show a stabilized energy field holding the ice." "This being, it's incredible." Mara nodded, though she didn't feel like celebrating. Cryovos was unpredictable, and she knew that their reliance on the alien, while necessary, came with risks. She had to lead wisely. Over the next day, the colony worked to repair minor damages, strengthen the domes, and monitor the cliffs. Mara organized teams, assigning tasks based on skill and experience. She realized that leadership was more than giving orders. It was coordinating trust, using every human ability in combination with the alien's power. During a brief pause, Mara went to her quarters. The alien floated in, pulsing softly. She reached out and touched it. The warmth spread through her body, calming her thoughts. "You did so much today," she said softly. "I don't know what we would have done without you." The creature pulsed brighter, and Mara felt a deeper connection. It understood her gratitude. It wasn't just a partner in survival. It was a friend, a guide, and a reminder of humanity's capacity to work with the unknown. But the challenges were far from over. As Mara reviewed sensor data, she noticed a disturbing trend. The ice cliffs were becoming increasingly unstable. The northern section was showing frequent shifts, suggesting an underlying instability in the planet's crust. If the pattern continued, the colony could face widespread damage. Mara called an emergency meeting with the colony's leadership. "The cliffs are not just a threat, they're changing," she explained. "We need a long-term plan, not just temporary fixes." Dr. Callan nodded gravely. "We can reinforce the outer shields, but it won't last forever. We'll need to adjust our operations and prepare for emergencies." Mara turned to the other leaders. "We also have a resource no other colony has, the alien. Its abilities are extraordinary, but we must use them wisely. We can't rely on it alone, but we can combine its powers with human ingenuity to survive Cryovos." The room was silent, the weight of the reality settling on everyone. Surviving Cryovos was not just about technology or skill, it was about trust, cooperation, and courage. In the days that followed, Mara organized training exercises, combining the aliens' abilities with human teamwork. Colonists learned to anticipate environmental hazards, respond quickly, and rely on their instincts. The alien guided them subtly, pulsing near weak points, alerting them to potential dangers and amplifying their actions when needed. Mara observed quietly, impressed by how quickly humans adapted. They were resilient, clever, and brave, traits that had allowed humanity to thrive on countless worlds. The aliens' presence highlighted their strengths, showing them that survival was not just about technology, but about intelligence, creativity, and collaboration. One evening, as Mara returned to her quarters, she noticed a faint shimmer in the alien's energy. It was different from usual, stronger and steadier. She reached out, placing her hands on its glowing form. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. The alien pulsed in response, almost like a nod. Mara realized that it had pushed itself to new limits. Its abilities had grown during the crisis, but that growth came at a cost. She knew she had to balance their reliance on it with care. The alien was not just a tool, it was a living being, fragile and extraordinary. That night, Mara reflected on the events. The northern cliffs remained unstable, but the colony was safer, stronger, and more prepared than ever. Humans had adapted, learned from each other, and combined their efforts with the aliens' abilities. They had survived one of Cryovos' greatest tests so far. Yet Mara knew that greater challenges lay ahead. Cryovos was not done testing them, and the planet's frozen heart hid dangers they could not yet imagine. But she also knew something powerful. Humanity, when guided by courage, intelligence, and cooperation, could rise to any challenge. The alien pulsed softly nearby, a living reminder of the bond they had formed. It was more than survival, it was partnership, understanding, and trust. And Mara understood that the future of the colony depended not just on technology or brute strength, but on the very best qualities of humanity: adaptability, creativity, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. As she closed her eyes that night, Mara felt a sense of quiet determination. The cliffs would continue to shift, storms would come, and the frozen winds of Cryovos would test them again and again. But she knew that with the alien by her side, and with the courage and ingenuity of the colony, they could face whatever came next. The challenge was far from over, but for the first time, Mara felt that they were truly ready. Cryovos had tested their limits, and humans had risen to meet them. Together, with trust, warmth, and determination, they would endure. The frozen wind of Cryovos howled outside the colony's domes, sharper and colder than anything the colonists had experienced so far. Lieutenant Mara Vance stood on the observation deck, her breath visible in the frigid air that seeped through the seals of the dome. The alien hovered near her shoulder, its soft blue glow a reassuring presence, but Mara's heart was heavy with worry. The northern cliffs had continued to shift since the last crisis. Sensor readings showed increasing instability throughout the planet's crust. This time, the threat was not just a single ice slide or thermal fluctuation. It was an entire section of Cryovos threatening to collapse, which could crush the colony and disrupt life support for weeks. Dr. Callan's voice came urgently over Mara's communicator. "Lieutenant, the data shows simultaneous energy surges in multiple locations. If we don't act quickly, the outer shields could fail completely, and the biodomes could be exposed to freezing temperatures." Mara nodded grimly. "Understood. Prepare all teams. We'll need to coordinate efforts across the entire perimeter, and we'll need the alien's full assistance." The alien pulsed brighter at her words, as if it understood the gravity of the situation. Mara reached out and placed her hands near its energy field. Immediately, she felt warmth and clarity spread through her, grounding her racing thoughts. Together, they would face this challenge, no matter how immense. Colonists moved with precision, reinforcing structures, checking systems, and preparing emergency protocols. Mara guided them, combining leadership and experience with the alien's abilities. The small being hovered from one area to another, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat, stabilizing weak spots in the shields and alerting Mara to emerging dangers. For hours, they worked. Mara moved between domes and control stations, her hands touching the alien's energy whenever she needed to focus. Slowly, the massive energy surges began to stabilize, but the northern cliffs were still unstable. Mara knew that if the cliffs collapsed, it could destroy the main power relay, cutting off the entire colony. She took a deep breath. "We're going to need a bold plan," she said to Dr. Callan over the communicator. "The alien and I will go to the cliff base. We'll stabilize the core energy points while teams secure the domes and relay systems." The scientist's voice was anxious. "It's extremely risky, Lieutenant. That section could collapse at any moment. Are you sure?" "I don't have a choice," Mara interrupted. "Trust me." Wrapped in protective gear, Mara and the alien made their way across the frozen terrain. The cliffs loomed higher than ever, ice stretching like jagged teeth into the sky. The wind was relentless, but Mara felt steady as long as the alien was near. Its energy field extended outward, shielding her from the worst of the cold. As they reached the base of the cliffs, Mara saw the full scope of the threat. Massive cracks ran through the ice, glowing faintly from the energy surges within. Pieces of the cliffs trembled and shifted with every gust of wind. Mara could see that the colony's survival depended on stabilizing the energy flowing through the ice. "Focus," she whispered to the alien. "We can do this together." The alien pulsed brightly, responding immediately. Mara placed her hands near its energy field, letting its warmth and power flow through her. Slowly, they extended the alien's energy into the ice, merging it with the colony's power systems to stabilize the core energy points. The first moments were tense. The ice trembled, small fissures forming around their position. Mara felt the chill creeping in, but she ignored it, relying on the alien's warmth and the knowledge that the colony depended on them. Gradually, the tremors slowed. The energy field held, but Cryovos was not finished. A sudden jolt ran through the cliffs, a violent tremor that threatened to collapse the outer edges. Mara shouted commands over her communicator. "Teams, brace the domes and shields. We have a strong surge coming." The alien pulsed rapidly, expanding its energy outward. Mara felt it flow into her body, amplifying her strength and focus. She directed the energy with precise movements, stabilizing weak points in the ice and reinforcing the colony's outer shields simultaneously. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly the tremors subsided. The alien's energy, combined with human ingenuity and teamwork, had held the cliffs steady. The colony's domes remained intact, and the biodomes continued to thrive despite the extreme cold. Mara exhaled deeply, feeling a wave of relief. She looked at the alien, its glow steady and calm now, as if acknowledging their success. The small being pulsed softly, and Mara realized how extraordinary this partnership had become. Together, they had achieved what neither could have done alone. Dr. Callan's voice came over the communicator, filled with awe. Lieutenant, I don't know how to explain this. The readings show complete stabilization. The alien, it's incredible. I've never seen anything like this in my career. Mara smiled, exhausted but proud. It's not just the alien, it's all of us. Humanity's courage, creativity, and teamwork, it's what made this possible. For the next few hours, Mara and the colonists worked to reinforce the remaining weak points, ensuring that the cliffs would remain stable for the foreseeable future. The alien continued to hover nearby, guiding their efforts, stabilizing energy flows, and alerting them to potential problems before they could occur. By the end of the day, the colony was safe. Mara returned to her quarters, exhausted but filled with a deep sense of accomplishment. The alien floated near her, pulsing softly as if to communicate its own satisfaction. Mara reached out and let its energy flow into her once more. The warmth spread through her body, calming her nerves and filling her with a quiet joy. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it together." The alien pulsed brighter, almost like a heartbeat, and Mara felt a profound connection. It was more than just survival. They had forged a true partnership, one that combined human ingenuity with alien ability in a way that was greater than either could achieve alone. That night, Mara reflected on everything that had happened on Cryovos. From the first encounter with the small, shimmering being to the crises that had threatened the colony, humanity had shown its resilience, courage, and capacity to adapt. The alien had revealed abilities beyond imagination, but it was the human spirit that had directed that power towards survival and cooperation. Outside, the frozen landscape of Cryovos was quiet under the dim light of its sun. Inside, the colony hummed with life. Humans moved with purpose, repairing equipment, tending to the biodomes, and preparing for the challenges that the planet would continue to present. And near Mara, the alien pulsed with a calm, steady light, a living reminder of what could be achieved when trust and cooperation bridged worlds. In the following weeks, the colony adjusted to the presence of the alien. Researchers studied its abilities carefully, always mindful of its well-being. Mara continued to lead, coordinating human and alien efforts, ensuring that the partnership was balanced, safe, and effective. The alien continued to evolve, showing new ways of interacting with the environment. It could sense subtle shifts in the ice, anticipate energy fluctuations, and amplify human abilities with even greater precision. The colonists learned to rely on its guidance without overburdening it, creating a system where human intelligence and alien capability complemented each other perfectly. One evening, Mara stood on the observation deck, looking out over the domes and the frozen cliffs. The colony was thriving, stronger than ever. The alien hovered near her, its glow reflecting in her eyes. "You've helped all of us," she said softly, "not just with your abilities, but with your presence. You've shown us that survival isn't just about strength or technology, it's about connection, trust, and courage." The alien pulsed in response, a soft, rhythmic glow that seemed to echo her words. Myra smiled. She realized that Cryovos, with all its dangers, had taught them a lesson. Humanity's greatest strength was not machinery or tools, but its mind, its heart, and its ability to work together. As the days passed, the colony grew more confident. Mara trained teams in advanced survival techniques, using the alien's abilities as a guide, not a crutch. Colonists learned to anticipate environmental hazards, repair systems efficiently, and adapt to unforeseen challenges. The alien's presence encouraged creativity and innovation, showing them possibilities that had seemed impossible. For Mara, the greatest lesson was simple. Humans could rise to any challenge, especially when guided by courage, ingenuity, and the warmth of cooperation. The alien had shown them new potential, but it was humanity that had shaped that potential into success. One morning, Mara stood at the highest point of the colony, overlooking the ice cliffs that had once threatened everything. The alien floated nearby, pulsing with steady light. The cliffs were stable now, the domes secure, and the biodomes thriving. Humanity had endured the harshest tests Cryovos could throw at them. Mara's thoughts turned to the future. There would be more challenges, more unknown dangers, and more tests of courage. But she knew this. With determination, intelligence, and the ability to trust in the unknown, humanity could survive anywhere, even on the frozen world of Cryovos. She looked down at the alien, glowing softly in the pale sunlight. Together, they had turned a hostile planet into a home. Together, they had proven that courage, creativity, and connection were the most powerful forces in the universe. And for the first time, Mara felt that nothing, not ice, storms, or the vast unknown of space, could stop them. Humanity, with all its imperfections and brilliance, had triumphed. The alien pulsed one last time, a rhythmic glow that echoed Mara's heartbeat. She smiled, knowing that Cryovos was no longer a threat but a testament to what humans could achieve. Together they had endured. Together they had survived. And together they had triumphed.